Look at that soft, fluffy sourdough sandwich bread. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a sourdough sandwich bread, perfect for baking in a pan just like this. By the way, this video is sponsored by the Bideem 4-slice toaster. More on this toaster later. We're going to start off with 450 grams of bread flour. Follow that with 150 grams of water, then 100 grams of milk. I'm using whole milk. This is where it starts to differ from my regular sourdough recipe in that we're using milk. This is going to give the interior of the bread kind of a more soft crumb, and that's what we're looking for. To further soften the crumb, we're going to add 25 grams of white sugar. Then we're going to put in the 10 grams of salt. Then, since this is a sourdough sandwich bread, we're not using any yeast. We're just going to be using 100 grams of active sourdough starter. I fed this earlier this morning, so it's been about 8 to 12 hours, and the sourdough starter has doubled in size. I'm going to put 100 grams of starter into this mixture. Then after the starter, we're just going to add 50 grams of softened butter. I'm going to break this up and put it in little pieces so it gets mixed around everywhere. And then I just put everything into one bowl together. I'm going to mix everything with my hands. Mix everything together until it becomes kind of a solid dough. And then I'm going to flip it out on the counter and knead it. So I'm just going to mix right now. Now that I've got a dough that basically looks like this, I'm going to flip it out on the counter and knead it for 8 minutes. You can knead it in a stand mixer, or you can knead it by hand, either way. Okay, once you've kneaded the dough, it really comes together into a smooth ball. Should happen just after about 8 to 10 minutes of kneading. Just form it into a smooth ball where the seam side is on bottom and the smooth side is on top. And then transfer it into a greased bowl where it's going to proof or bulk ferment overnight. So I've got some oil going in this bowl. Just going to get some oil on top of the dough and on the bottom. I'm going to cover it up with some plastic wrap, touching it all the way down, making it like skin tight on top of the dough. And just so you can see what I did, I had oil on top of the dough as well as on this side of the plastic wrap. So now the plastic wrap is not going to be sticking to the dough when I peel it off the next morning. So just let your dough bulk ferment on the counter overnight. Anywhere from 8 to 10 hours should be plenty. The next morning, which is about 9 hours later for me, check your dough and it should have about doubled in size, or at least considerably increased in volume overnight. Sprinkle the top of the dough with some flour, and then put a little flour on your bench as well. And then flip the dough out onto the counter so the top side is now against the counter and the sticky side is facing up. Now it's time to pre-shape the dough. Grab an edge of the dough and pull it in over the center, and go around the dough, grabbing another edge, pulling it up over the center. You'll get a nice smooth ball of dough like this. Then pick the dough up, wipe away your flour, and flip the dough over onto the counter with the seam side down and the smooth side now up. Then go around the dough, cupping and pulling the dough just to kind of create some tension across the top of the loaf. You can smack some bubbles to pop them if you see any big bubbles. Then cover up the dough and let it rest for 30 minutes on the counter. A half hour later, and it's time for the final shape. The final shape is where we take this round ball of dough and shape it into an oval to perfectly fit into your loaf pan. Flip the dough over and then gently press your fingertips down into the dough right in the middle, right where you think the middle of the circle is. And flip one edge of the dough over into the center and flip the other edge over to meet in the center as well. And now you're going to roll and tuck the dough like this. Just tuck it in and roll the dough over. This is sometimes called a tension roll. And there you turned your nice round ball of dough into an oval, perfect for fitting into your pan. And you don't have to do this next step, you can put it right into your pan right now, but I like to grab the edges of the dough and fold them over a bit to get rid of that kind of spiral that you see on the end of the loaf. Then drop your dough directly into your loaf pan. This would be a good time to grease your loaf pan if you need to, but I've got a great non-stick pan that I love to use. I don't have to use oil or butter or anything. If you want one of these pans, check out the link in the video description. Okay, now it's time to let this dough proof. Let it rise at room temperature for 8 to 10 hours, perfect for when you're gone for the whole day. All right, I'm home from work and this dough has been proofing for about 10 hours. That's what I love about sourdough bread. If I had used commercial yeast for this bread, it would have totally overproofed in 10 hours. But at just 10 hours, this is nice and ready to bake. So I'm gonna go ahead and preheat the oven. Okay, I'm preheating the oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. That's not convection, just standard oven setting. And it's my usual trick to get steam in the oven. I'm gonna put a cast iron pan in the bottom tray. And I'm gonna throw some ice cubes into that once we start baking. That's gonna send a jet of steam up to right here where the bread's gonna be baking on top of my baking steel. So preheat your oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit for a half hour. And then this is another optional step, but I like to brush the top of my sandwich loaves with an egg wash, just one beaten egg. This gives the loaf a nice dark sheen on top when it comes out of the oven. Now I'm going to bake this for 40 minutes with a few ice cubes in the steam tray. "40 minutes later, pop the bread out of the oven and let it cool for at least an hour before you slice in. All right, it's been over an hour. Time to slice this bad boy up. That's the stump piece. I'm gonna cut this way. Okay, let's see that. Look at that soft, fluffy sourdough sandwich bread. Okay, I moved outside for a little better light. As you can see, the shape of this bread, how it's almost that commercial square shape, is perfect for sandwiches, but it's also perfect for fitting in the toaster. So that's what we're gonna test out right now. I'm gonna put this in the Bideem 4-slice toaster and see how it turns out. So, this bread is perfect for toasting. I'm gonna go ahead and press down. The thing I love about this Bideem toaster is it's got the regular toast setting, which is what I'm using, but it's also got this cool bagel and like English muffin feature where it toasts on the outside at first and then it just toasts on the inside or the cut side. So if you're toasting a bagel, it's perfect for that. I'm just going with the toast setting today and I'm putting it between 5 and 6 out of 7. That's the darkness level I like. Let's see how this toasts up. All right, 2 perfectly toasted pieces of sourdough sandwich bread. So this bread is seriously super good for sandwiches, but really good for toast as well. Soft on the inside. If you're just using it untoasted, it's really soft and only slightly tangy from that sourdough starter. And if you're using it as toast, I really like that tang. Really like that little sour tang because it holds up really well to butter or really anything that you're putting on it. It just takes your white bread to the next level. So try out this sourdough sandwich bread.